Hi, welcome. I haven't posted anything on my YouTube channel for a while, and this particular video will go into the 12-step ACA videos. So if you want to check out any more of those, I welcome you to peruse it. Of course, if you want to subscribe after you're done listening, maybe you're already a subscriber. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Go ahead, pick like and subscribe. I'm not going to beg you because at this point nobody's funding me. I'm not getting any money to be on YouTube. Okay, so today, if you look at the other videos I've done, I've already covered codependency, but I wanted to just talk about it, well, for two reasons. One, I just really want to define it by itself. There's a lot of other things in ACA and in the 12-step programs, but it really helps to understand codependency and spend a little time on that because it's really key to everything. It's the crux of the whole program. And I would say my second purpose is to look at codependency in the interpersonal and also in society. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos trying to explain some of the things that are happening in these last couple years, and there's so many ways to look at, like, why do people do what they do. And I just think codependency is really key to understanding that, and we don't have to hit our heads up against the wall like, why is this going on? We can look at codependency and it kind of sums it up. Okay, but so I think this video could probably help us no matter which situation we're looking at, the personal, interpersonal, or this personal, societal. So let's just look at the definition. Adult Children of Alcoholics definition, page 100 of the Big Red Book. If you don't know what that is, it's just called Adult Children of Alcoholics, and it's like part of the Alcoholics Anonymous cluster of groups. And well, here's the definition from page 100. And let's move this a bit so you can see. We, and the word they insert is constantly, look outside of ourselves for love, affirmation, and attention. So we look outside of ourselves. We are ourselves, but in order to get love, have people say that we're okay, whatever it is, just even to get to attention, we're looking out there. We're looking to the other all the time. That's it. That's codependence. And we're doing that from people who cannot provide it. They cannot provide the attention. They cannot provide the affirmation and the love. No matter what we do, we're really not getting that. And there's a key reason. What does it look like to be codependent? So if you think, am I codependent? Well, first of all, don't beat yourself up if these things apply, because a lot of people are. Most people are codependent. It's not good for us, but it's the way we tend to look at life. It may have something to do with the movies we watch and the books we read, and what we think about when we watch the news. We are kind of programmed to think this way, and there aren't very many places in our society that address this problem, because it is a problem. We are people pleasing. We want to please people, that's great, but when we do it out to keep them from leaving us, when we do it to make ourselves feel comfortable, because if they're not happy, we're not happy. Well, and we can people please in so many ways, with money, with service, but it's beyond what is good. Pleasing people's fine. Do people consider us on the other side of that, and what we're doing? Would they do that for us? I don't know. That's a question you might want to ask if you feel like this is what you do. You people please all the time. We might be self-censoring. We might just not say things that we would normally say, because in the relationship, we sense that the other person isn't going to like that. They won't like us as much. So we start to not stick up for ourselves, not say what we don't want to be in trouble all the time, but maybe we are censoring ourselves too much. And maybe we deny our own needs. We have needs. We have the physical needs, we have emotional needs, but we might find that we deny those needs. Part of that is self-censoring, but maybe there's just things that we have to have psychologically, emotionally, that we deny ourselves because we're in a codependent relationship. It's all based on fear. Okay, fear is really a key part of this, but this isn't going to be the fear video, okay? But you'll see it all over the place in this. It's between the lines. And we deny our own thinking. So yeah, that's self-censoring, but it goes a little further. It means that maybe we haven't thought for ourselves for a long time. We have thought in terms of the other person, and we forget. Okay, so we are enabling others because others have sometimes poor behavior, and we let them. We're not in control of them necessarily, but we sometimes go as far as allowing the poor behavior so we don't lose them, or even enabling in order to letting them intensify the bad habit, because we think that will make them happy, and then we'll be happy. And I'll just say, from personal experience, I was in a relationship wherein the person had an addiction. And I went into the relationship, first of all, like erroneous thinking that I could change that person or help them. I even knew that. I had my eyes open even before, but I cared about this person, and I felt if I just helped him enough, he'd improve. But then I found that helping him also meant enabling him. It wasn't really helping him, but to be happy. Okay, I would allow his addiction and even encourage it a little bit. Pretty shameful. But in a way, I felt like this made him happy, and then I'd be happy, and we'd both be happy, and maybe he'd even recognize it. You really never want to do that with addiction and think that the person will say, look at how you're really helping me and, enabling me, and that's not right, and I want to change. It doesn't happen. Okay. And we will even justify it by pretending self-sacrifice is virtuous. So when we're in a codependent relationship, we're not thinking about our own needs. We're usually just thinking about the other person's needs, and we're sacrificing our own needs. And this is not selflessness, okay? This is pretending selflessness. It doesn't do us any good to sacrifice ourselves. And I'll explain as we go along. We forget who we are. Maybe we never knew who we were, what we enjoy, and what our dreams are. Now, I would say most people do know what, at least at some point in their life, maybe when you're younger, maybe when you just, you're in school or something and you have dreams for yourself. And most people do this at some point in their life. They have a dream, and it's something that they want to do, and there's things that they like to spend their time doing, music they like to listen to, or projects that they want to embark on, some kind of artistic endeavor. And you don't do it because you don't even know who you are anymore. And you once in a while you stop and say, gosh, I used to have dreams. What happened to that? So in a codependent relationship, we will tend to just put those aside. And then we feel abandoned. Okay. We feel abandoned because the other person doesn't appreciate that self-sacrifice or all the things we do and the people pleasing and all that stuff. Because you do come to a point where you say, well, I've been doing this stuff and you don't seem to appreciate it or even recognize me that I'm there. And you feel resentment. Okay, but you made the choice to do it. See, you made a choice to enable the person, to please the person, to give up things for the person. And then they actually blame you for preventing them from getting their dreams because they're completely focused on my needs being met and why isn't that person meeting my needs? Okay, those could be all kinds of needs, financially, sexually, whatever it is, and we get blamed because people that are codependent don't tend to see us and don't tend to take responsibility either. So it's all about that responsibility. And we feel helpless and hopeless when they leave us, okay? Because our purpose is lost. Our purpose was making them happy and taking care of them. And then they leave us because I guess we didn't do that right. And then we don't have a purpose anymore. Well, that's kind of sad because that's our purpose, is just to be making somebody else happy. Then who are we? What happened to us in the meantime? And we can't do much about it once they leave. That's over. We're not in that relationship. And hopefully we don't go back to it or beg for it, or they don't come back to us, because this is important. Being here, that helpless and hopeless thing, is actually a good thing. It means you got to stand there by yourself, and it hurts a little bit, and we grieve it. We grieve a little. But what we do is we begin to understand some things that we've been ignoring. Okay. So, all right. I'm going to get to where we want to be, but I also want to talk about how this works in society. And it's going to sound a little like a political message. I hope you won't see it that way, because I think this applies to any political stripe or any other kind of thing that you see as the world in the larger picture. So first of all, the microcosm, of course, is ourselves and our intimates, friends and family, people we really know. I mean, we may have a lot of Facebook friends, but there are those people that really are close to us and that's the microcosm. And we tend to be codependent in those relationships because they are so important to us and they're so close. But we can be codependent in the macrocosm and in the same way, but we don't even recognize it because we don't understand codependency. So we have the macrocosm as ourselves, our groups, our labels, because we can be connected to a label. A label means it's a stereotype, really. And if we can't stand outside that label, then you got to wonder, that's not maybe a good thing. Our political parties, our faith groups, and our government. Okay, we can be codependent with those entities and more. It's just a lot more. I mean, insert anything else that you can think of that you are in a relationship with, kind of. Okay? And this is manifested in a kind of a groupthink. Groupthink shouldn't have a good connotation. But I think while we're in it, we don't maybe see it as such a bad thing to think like our group. And there's a little bit of sense in it. But we have these collective beliefs within our group. So it doesn't matter what it is, what ism it is. We identify with those beliefs, and we have groupthink. And what informs that groupthink? What informs the collective beliefs? There's economic groups, like maybe we're middle class, working class, political groups, Republican, Democrat, Green, Libertarian, maybe even anarchist, socialist, communist. There are so many ways in which we identify politically. Organizations, so a lot of times they're kind of hand in hand, but there are a lot of organizations. Some are less political than others, but we might belong to those or in some way identify with them. There are faith groups, and this is an interesting thing because, you have to understand that faith groups are made up of people, and maybe your personal relationship to a deity, to God, to whoever you see that relationship, whatever, however you define it, the people that make up the groups are not necessarily that relationship. And so they might steer us, and we'll talk about the steering that goes on. That's what these little arrows are about, okay? There are the icons. And this can be less political and less, although they can merge, and that's kind of where it gets dangerous. The icons could be musicians that we love. It could be authors that we like, philosophers. And, those icons are very powerful because they can speak on behalf of other groups and they can steer us a little bit. And then there's our educational identity, okay? Because we got to a certain level of education and we see ourselves in terms of that or in terms of like the major that we chose. So there's me or you individually and the group. And really, if it were healthy, there'd be feedback going around this way. The group gives us ideas of ways to think about things, but we also should be able to give feedback so that it's like this. But that doesn't happen, especially in a large group. There's usually a steering committee. It's an interesting word. And larger groups, well, they might demand loyalty. They may demand you accept every one of their precepts, but you might question some of their precepts. You might say, I'm not sure this is good for me, or good for some people that I love, or whatever it is. And if you can't provide feedback or aren't allowed, and you don't question that, that's codependency. And you might ask yourself, do I think for myself? Do I think outside of those groups? And what are these groups doing? They steer us. So it's not just us. We're looking to them. And then over time, they might change. And they might go outside of those things that we embraced at the beginning. And we should pay attention to that. And part of being, independent of thinking is that we can see it happening. Also, if we're not seeing what's happening, we're starting to move in a certain direction. We might not recognize it. And we might recognize a demand for loyalty in spite of the fact that things have changed. So as it is in a personal relationship, it might be all wonderful and lovey-dovey at the beginning and then go off the rails because it's starting to steer us into abuse or something that we don't want for ourselves. Okay. But the group is comfortable, safe, familiar. We stay in what is safe. We stay in what is familiar by habit. And because considering something else is scary, we might think it's dangerous, but we tend, even in something that's not good for us, still see it as more comfortable than what we don't know, or more safe than going outside of that. Like, why doesn't that woman leave that abusive husband or that abusive boyfriend? It's not a hard thing to answer. It's what they know. And they fear to drop everything. And it might mean giving up some things that are comfortable, but maybe in the long run, it's not safe. It's not comfortable at all. All right. What advantage is it to think for oneself? Because if you've got this comfort and safety and familiarity, why would you want to leave that? Because sometimes it doesn't seem so bad. It seems okay. And, and maybe you're conforming and maybe you're going along because it's what you know. Okay, well, here's the reason that you want to stop being codependent. I gotta move a little bit because it's kind of hurting. There we go. Much better. We might recognize abuse. That's like the biggest thing. Once we understand our codependence, and like maybe move out of it a little bit, we see, oh, I must not respect myself because I am allowing abuse. And I didn't recognize it so much as I'd lost my identity. And I realized it's disrespecting myself. So you recognize abuse once you get outside of that codependency. You can stand in your truth. Now, some people don't want to do that because it's lonely. Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of people might be like you and have a truth that resembles your own, at least something that has to do with self-respect and self-reliance. Standing in your own truth is sometimes a bit lonely, yes, but it is also, it's where you see things most clearly. And that is where you need to make that choice. Do you want to shut your eyes to things, or do you want to see things the way they're in harmony with the values, maybe values you left behind? The joy of independence, once you get used to it, it's so wonderful to be independent. And that was not me for many years. I mean, I was in relationships just out of high school and in college, and was married, and I was divorced, and I had to face being alone. But you know what? I was like, nope, that's not good. Got in new relationships where I felt, again, the codependency. I felt trapped sometimes, but I just tried to forget that. That's not comfortable. I didn't give myself a chance to have that joy of independence. Okay, and I could address personal needs. What had I been like ignoring for many, many years while I was in codependent relationships? What were the things that, like dreams and hopes I had? I can now finally do that. Okay? So it's really important to realize that you do have these needs outside of a codependent relationship. If you are not codependent anymore, first of all, you realize that it's not coercion that you make choices. Okay? It's and you can have cooperation with others. That's not codependency. It means you both recognize that something you're doing and embarking on is healthy, okay, and good for both of you. And it's not just that we're all in this together, everybody should sacrifice for everybody else in a coercive way, okay. It's cooperation, and it's honoring everybody. It's honoring people's values. Some people think that's not consistent with democracy or something, but hear me out, okay. It comes right down to self-love. And it was something, not only did I not understand codependency, even if I read the definition, I just didn't get it. It took me a while to understand it and embrace it. Self-love. Because I thought that it was either narcissistic, and I thought it was selfish and narcissistic, but it's not. It's not at all. It's, in a way, it's self-preservation, but that doesn't sound like full enough for me. But first of all, just understand, it's not selfish to love yourself. Loving yourself is not, hey, look at me, I'm the best person, everybody should love me, etc. No, it's just you don't need anybody to love yourself. That's different. It's a lot more distinct than what people seem to think. It also includes self-awareness, self-replenishing, and that's important because no matter if somebody leaves you or what they do, if you love yourself, you can always build yourself back up. You can always fill yourself again, okay? And you know what you think. You're self-aware. So this is a wonderful place to be. Even if you've been abandoned by people, these are the things that you're looking for. And it's self-replenishing is a wonderful thing. You can go back to that well of self-love again and again. Might take a while to get what it means to have self-love, but you'll eventually figure it out. It's also like adulthood. Remember when we were kids and we were looking to our parents, we thought they were all powerful, they knew everything, and they also took care of us. But we became adults. We weren't kids anymore. We made choices for ourselves. We don't have to rely on somebody else. But sometimes we miss that. We just look for other people to tell us how to think, what to do, when to do it, forgetting that we're adults and can make those choices. That is what being an adult is. And self-reliance. Like for me, I have been alone for a while. I've dated a little bit, but I haven't found it to be, at least in the situations that I've found myself in, I have found it was better to be alone because I needed that other people want to be in a relationship. Hopefully you will choose a relationship that is beneficial to you and beneficial to the other person, where you're valued. I also think of that in the larger context of our society. We should be valued, all of us. Our decisions should be valued. Our values, even if they differ a little bit from some other people, should at least be respected in terms of people trying to understand us, where we come from. Okay, as long as we're not trying to harm others. And it's interesting because right now things are framed in such a way to make people look like choosing and thinking for oneself is somehow harming others. So, okay. So this is the end of my presentation. We are better able to help others if we retain we're better able to help others, but retain our personal agency. So we are the agents of our own lives. We're the brokers. We're the decision makers for ourselves. And this includes, this is our autonomy. I guess when we're talking so much today about, we have this choice, personal autonomy, bodily autonomy versus everyone's in this together, or do for be loyal to the whole group for the good of everybody. Okay, the common good. But that can be used, that can be abused, the common good, if it's codependent. Okay, it shouldn't be coercive. It shouldn't be emotionally, it shouldn't be guilting you. It shouldn't be emotional blackmail. Your perspective should be honored. And your perspective doesn't hurt anybody, especially if it's really not a harmful perspective. It can be debated. Sure, people will debate this. I get it. But think about that. Can you ask questions even? Are you allowed to ask questions? If you're not, if you're censored, you might be in a codependent relationship, whether it's with somebody else, like an individual, or within your group. All right. So what happens when we have self-love, when we are self-reliant, when we are no longer codependent? We have love for ourselves, and we are better able to give it. That means to our groups, to the people in our lives, because we can replenish it within ourselves too. It's part of us. It's because we honor and respect ourselves that we're better able to give to others. And that's not codependency. That is understanding that our happiness comes from here. When we expect it to come from elsewhere, as in, I think, an earlier visual I had, it showed all the arrows, like our thinking, our self-worth was coming from outside of ourselves. Let me see if I can find that, because I think that's pretty key. Yeah. Look at the difference here. When we're relying, okay, within our group, all these things, the feedback and the and they're not giving it to us, okay? It's not really coming here. It's not, it's not going back and forth. Here we go. It's not selfish to take care of ourselves, to love ourselves. And any group or individual that tells you otherwise does not really understand what love is. So, I guess to finish this off, I'm going to go back to my happy picture. would rather be this person, even if I'm standing alone. The person that can replenish love and self-respect, and then give love without coercion, without people-pleasing, without censoring, without any of those things. And that's the personal and the interpersonal and the societal. Always we have to come back to, we are born alone with this person, and this person goes back to ashes. This is always who we have to take care of. And it's not selfish. It helps us to be full people who can contribute to society and do good for others and for ourselves as well. So hopefully you understand after that what codependency is, what self-love really means, what it means to be an autonomous individual, but somebody who also is healthy enough to contribute to the whole. Well, thank you, and I hope that I'll make other videos and not abandon my channel as I have. But that was my choice too. Thank you for anybody who's listening, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.